you don't know, this is Alcoholics Anonymous. And usually people think, is that just a 12-step program? And the question is, yes. And if people don't really know what the 12-step program really is, I really recommend checking it out yourself. Okay. So basically you got this thing called AA out there. Basically it's where usually some people get sent if they're having problems drinking, or they get drunk and then they crash into something, or they need general treatment. The thing is, it just does it in a very, very bizarre fashion, but it works for some people, but I would recommend not to do it, considering it could cause you more mental harm and grief than it could be if you did it more secular fashion by going to a mental institution or some other form of treatment. There are very good treatments out there that are like AA, but they tend to be more secular in the terms of what they do. And I'm using the word secular just for a reason in pertaining that AA itself is a religious cult in terms of sense of what its vision is. I'm not saying it's directly a cult, it's an organization of non-professionals. So what we have to do is we have to presume that it isn't, because it does very, very crafty practices. What the heck are we doing at the same time here? Okay, let me give you a picture here. Okay, picture this. Give you this book here. That's a very crummy book. I could draw way better than this, by the way. It's just for demonstration purposes. This book here, it runs through the 12 steps. And there's one section directly on the fact that God exists, and upon other things, how God can help you get treatment, and other practices. Get the fact that there's no evidence to begin with. So, let me begin with just drawing out a psychological map here of what exactly can go on inside of a patient's mind here. Okay, this is why AA is kind of dangerous if you let them have a religious view in this, needing the treatment, being religious, is kind of dangerous in general. I'm not trying to say all religious things, but in principle, anything with a belief system that has no evidence to it could be potentially dangerous. Okay, let me draw a state diagram. If you don't know what these are, look them up if you want. Wikipedia, as much as I don't like Wikipedia. Okay, we're gonna have we're gonna picture a graph, and not the kind of graph with the weird lines and whatnot. We're talking about real graphs here. Suppose we have two states. We have treatment and in treatment. When you presume there is something that makes the person believe that they're getting treatment, we'll label this X. We're going to label it X. See? Now we got an X. This could be, say, like for example, in AA's example, God. God or God's existence, God's comfort, God, believing in God, belief in belief of God, in belief in belief in belief in belief of God. You know, the usual stuff. Okay. Now, if we have person P, and P is a subset of a population, we're going to label with with a blackboard P. Don't confuse that with primes or other domains in mathematics. We're just going to have P is a subset of, is an element inside of the subset of people that need treatment. So this could be any P in here. Okay. So what happens is, when the mental brain catches into a conscious that it's being convinced of something, the first place is, picture it like a machine. Free will here and there. You want to think of it as a very cognitive device here, because it's very mechanical in some sense, but it's very complicated and we can't really predict things now and then, but it's working very well. There's lots of studying going on in neuroscience on this, which is very important. Person P looks for reason X. What you want to put in X is something that the person can understand and could actually refer to and be able to resolve with it. The key is resolve. If something can't be comprehended by definition, for example, God can't be comprehended by definition, considering there is no formal definition of God. Every person has a different representation of what God is. For example, some believe it's the Bible, some people believe it's some cosmic universal being thing that created the universe and then left. It doesn't do anything. You can see what I mean. And it doesn't have a formal definition. So you can really see this kind of being a bit dangerous here, considering X should be you if you need treatment. So that's the important thing here, is that if you invoke a supernatural cause or reason, you need to be able to explain it. And the most important thing with treatments, like for example, if you're an alcoholic or you need help with drug treatments, you really need to get in there and you need to start thinking about yourself, and you should be happy of what you do to yourself. Okay, maybe that sounds kind of gross. I mean, in a more general sense. If you should be happy with what you and you potentially are capable of doing. Considering people always give this grief to some supernatural force when they really should be happy for themselves and who they care about, who they love, and everything like that, you know. Okay, person P refers to X. What happens is, in the brain here, it's referring to, like for example, if somebody was drunk, had drinking problems, and they're getting slowly treatment together, they're going to keep looking for reason X. And if reason X keeps circulating, because for example, okay, now let's take this to the instance of X is a subset of one of the reasons of God. God can't be explained, so if you can't really explain something, you're going to get a circular argument. And this is something that we refer to as a very inefficient way of doing things. Thing is, if you're following on, the machine of the brain's cognitive systems will keep in repetitive fashion. So it means, if you keep thinking God's going to keep helping you, it's not going to help you technically, considering the fact that you're going to keep repeating this representation over and over again, when what actually should be happening is this. Okay, now suppose X is, for example, a reason that actually makes sense, some sort of treatment procedure that's effective. X2, okay, and okay. Now suppose X is like, for example, the person, and knowing the responsibilities. X is going to refer to itself, and then it's going to progress along and along, and you can see where this is going. As opposed to just using one reason, now you've got multiple different reasons, considering it's going to develop over a span of time until the person feels better and can move on with their life. That's dangerous when you have it in the AA fashion, when you have it where you're dealing with cognitive structures that actually could, in fact, damage themselves. Considering the fact you're giving them something that they can believe in, and the cognitive forces will say, okay, I got myself a reason. And that's the dangerous part here, is that you're giving yourself a reason when there's no reason there at all. Because the person should be looking to themselves and saying, okay, I have a mistake. And then they need to work themselves through. And the problem is, with the AA fashion, you get yourself in groups. Let me go to a good example. You get yourself alien abduction group. Everybody in there will be more convinced that the aliens exist and they're being abducted as they know it by the fact that they're in a room with people that think this. If you have a room full of people that think that God's helping them out, they'll be convinced that this too. So what we need to do is we need to think more rationally and treat them more effectively instead of doing in the stupid AA fashion where you're going to have it where this God stupid junk is in the midst of things when there should be proper reasoning in it. Okay, I'm going to get this God reasoning and I know God's going to help me. Praise Jesus! But you know, that's the key here, is that if you can follow a reason, you should be able to cognitively follow it along and progress. And this doesn't mean following one reason. You should be able to follow it in an infinite regression so that you can figure out a reason cognitively, progressively, as it goes, to get a more effective treatment. Thank you very much. Have a beautiful day.